Yeah, we have a test area, which is somewhat separated from the assembly area where products can be functionally tested and performance tested where appropriate,
Hmm.
and it's usually appropriate. So we have one group who's building and the other group who's testing it. It tends to be a different skill set. The people who are assembling it don't necessarily want to turn it on and make measurements. So that's kind of how that's divided up. In the work cells, no, in the work cells, it's built and tested right there. Typically, it sometimes it moves a little bit along, like it's built over here on this, and then goes around the wall and gets tested. Um, but it's all one basic area staffed by a crew, and they have different jobs when they're in there.
Depending on the risk that's involved. So way back in like design and prototyping phases, we'll do a risk analysis to decide um, with each subassembly what is the risk that this subassembly is not going to perform its intended function, and how detectable is it later, and how easy is it to fix later. And
Yeah.
based off of some of those decisions, we'll decide at the subassembly level that we need to test certain parameters so that it can be caught lower in the manufacturing process, and there isn't as much value add there as to when it's in a complete product. Like think of if we have a subassembly that you know I don't know, call it a couple of circuit boards or something, and they're critical to the function of the product, and they just so happen to be in the bottom of the box that
Yeah.
that the product is, and it would take 4 hours to get to it at the end of the assembly line. Okay, yeah, we've defined that this is pretty risky and we need to verify certain parameters of this subassembly. Let's do it now while it's exposed and we can get to it and we can verify those parameters out on the bench, determine its goodness, and then know at the later level we have confidence that when we install it, we're not going to have to get back in there and fix it, change it, or swap it out. It's all a risk-based decision plan. When we get into any type of volume manufacturing, cable harnesses, we'll outsource that, and we'll ask certain cable houses to manufacture a cable to our specifications. But we'll also push down um, certain parameters for how to test and verify the goodness of the cable. Does it pass? What is it? Continuity and shorts. We'll ask them to do those tests, at a minimum, depending on the complexity of the cable, you can do other tests as well. But we'll ask our supplier to do those and just certify upon delivery that they did them and that those cables passed. And then we have confidence that when we install it, we know those cables are gonna perform what they need to.
Regulatory testing, safety testing for, say, UL. Um, those are design verification tests. They're not they're not product testing. So you're testing the design. UL is going to say, okay, these are the materials you use, so the design is acceptable, or you need to make a little modification over here. And then when it gets into production, we need to the um, follow the manufacturing plan that UL is approved for the product, or we have to go back to UL and explain that, hey, we need to change the materials or something about the design and have them approve it. Some things we can change and they don't care about. Other things they do care about, and it's up to them when they want to jump in and make a decision on that. During the manufacturing process, in many cases, UL requires an electrical safety test on 100% of the product, and they'll specify what that test is and what the voltages and currents and what the limits are on the test. And we have test equipment that does that in an automated way. That's very typical. The, for instance, the high pot and ground bond testing for things that are mains connected, plugged into the wall. Um, UL has a requirement that you test to make sure that it's safe. Um, so there's safety testing where we send the product out and they look at the design. That's a design verification test. And then there's the safety testing that's in production that's done in 100% of the units. And UL doesn't witness that test. They just want to know that we did it and we've documented the results. Our customer has said, okay, we need an instrument that's going to do A, B, and C. And and when it's designed, usually with the beta prototypes, they're looking at the customer usability. Is it easy for the customer to use it? Is it safe? Do the customers have any opinions? Frankly, it's a little late for customer opinions, but hey, they show up all the time, so you got to deal with them. But the customer usability testing is kind of part of the validation of the design of the system. Once you're in manufacturing, um, the the customer interaction with the equipment is usually documented in the manual. Here's how you do something with the product. So the performance expectations for the product will be stated in say a product the product requirements document. It'll say this instrument needs to be able to measure this to within such and such an accuracy. So that'll be part of the product design validation. There might be, depending upon how close to the design limits, there may be 100% testing of the product to ensure that it does meet those accuracy requirements. And that's very typical for a product that requires calibration. So we have NIST traceable equipment here that we use to calibrate a lot of the instrumentation that we make. And it goes out, and in fact, many customers prefer to send their equipment back to us periodically, annually, in some cases every 6 months, for recalibration because we have the instrumentation to do the calibration. Again, that's kind of a risk plan based. And when I know I said customer, but I really meant our customer's customer
Right.
is typically the ones who would send equipment in because we've got the metrology lab that will allow us to calibrate it properly. In many cases, customers are authorized to calibrate their equipment themselves if they have certain equipment and a technician that knows how to do it. But at the same time, we have been known to send field engineers out to a plant because they have, I don't know, 10 of our instruments in this one plant, and they want us to come through and do a calibration annually. So
Mhm.
during their plant shutdown for whatever reason, we'll be scheduled in, we'll calibrate all of the equipment and get it back to them.
And then as far as quality expectations, that's not so much, um, verifying performance. That's not something that quality would be involved in. But I consider, I consider quality to kind of be the last step before a product ships, and what they're doing is verifying that all of the checks and balances to prove that the product is tested to the level our customer expects it to be has been done and is documented. A lot of times our customers will ask us for to keep records of certain tests we ran, certain numbers that we identified, calibration coefficients being one of them. Um, they want us to keep a record of that for each unit. So when quality gets a hold of a product at the end of the line, they're verifying, are all those records present? Are they all filled out accurately? Does everything line up, with a product serial number versus component serial numbers? Is all the traceability there that needs to be for a particular product? We have a couple of products, one in particular we've been building now for almost 8 years, and it's called a device history record, and that's just a record of that particular unit for every unit that we've ever manufactured. So at any time, our customer can call us and say, hey, we're having an issue with serial number 43. Can you look up the record and tell us certain information about it? And we can. And we share that information with them. We keep a record of it as ourselves. But that's kind of the what feeds into the quality of it. Actually, our QA manager likes to say that at that point he's acting as if he's our customer. So what is our customer's expectations? And he kind of goes in and makes sure that everything is in place that our customer expects before it leaves here. All the T's are all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted kind of thing. Our customer asks us to build something via a specification. They literally will give us a specification for product and say, we need you to build this. We go ahead, we buy material, we build it, we test it right before it ships. Our quality department basically ensures that we have met the specification that our customer has asked us to build and all the intricacies thereof. So if they ask us to build widget at Rev B, did we build that widget at Rev B? Are we shipping it with all the proper documentation? Is everything completed the way that our customer expects it to be completed? That quality, all those checks are put in place right before a product leaves.